Hello, Driver Ed students, and this is a presentation on Chapter 17, Buying and Maintaining a Vehicle. Now, we had you do a buying a car, selling a used car project already, so we're not going to spend too much time on the first part of this chapter. I'm just going to hit a couple key areas that you need to know for the test, and we're going to move on. So I hope this presentation finds you well, and let's get started. So, as we talked about before, you should consider your budget and driving needs. Obviously, if you don't need a giant pickup truck to drive through the city or down into the city every day, that's probably not a good buy. Where you're going to park it, how you're going to move it around. So, you have to think about what you're going to be using the car or vehicle for. Remember, you also got to pay for other things other than the cost of the car. This is called cost of ownership. You'll have to pay for car insurance, registration fees, city stickers, gasoline, oil, preventative maintenance, repairs. The list goes on and on. There are a couple things in life that you feel you just sink money in, and those are houses. When you purchase a house and when you purchase a car, you definitely need them, and you end up spending lots of money on them to keep them up and running, and they always break down at unpredictable times. So keep that in mind. So, you got to decide what you want. If you got a big family, you're looking at a minivan or SUV. If it's just yourself, you might be looking at a two-door coupe. One of the most important factors in purchasing a car is when you look through the cars online was safety features, from airbags to electronic stability control that helps you in your skidding, to side impact airbags, to tire pressure monitoring systems. All of these things help you be safe and keep your car in tip-top shape. Cars today are basically run by a computer, and there's sensors all through the car that will tell the car what's happening to it, whether the car is due for a service or needs maintenance on something. So, very sophisticated the cars are. Today, most cars have backup cameras. They're very useful when backing up, as you learned in the behind the wheel part. That should not be your main focus when backing up. You shouldn't stare at the screen. Treat it more as a mirror. It's one place you can look. But when backing up, you should have your head turned around looking out the back windshield and side windows when backing up. That just helps guide you. Remember, the camera has a what we call a fisheye lens or a wide angle lens, so it distorts the image that's back there. Things will appear closer than they really are. Now, some cars have lane departure systems, warning systems. They'll tell you when your car's coming out of the lane, and the steering wheel will actually shake to tell you to get back into the center of the lane. There's variable height, ride height suspension. When you're off road, the car's height will go up. When you're on the expressway driving fast, the car will lower down tighter to the ground. Very cool. Um, what's the advantages of buying a new car over a used car? They both have their advantages and disadvantages, but the advantages for buying a new car, it's yours, it's brand new. Uh, there's nothing wrong with it. It's all in tip-top shape. Every dent, scratch, thing you do to it, you will know because you did to it. The nice things about new cars is they come with warranties, and you don't have to worry about the scheduled maintenance. Typically, most cars now come either with a 3-year 30,000-mile warranty or a 5-year 50,000-mile warranty. It just depends on the manufacturer. Some can be as much as 10 years, and you can always buy more warranty protection if you feel you want to buy more. So that's the advantage of a new car. Then there's some advantages of used cars. Obviously, a new car is going to cost more. Some advantages of a used car is somebody else worked off all the depreciation on the car, and so the purchase price is lower. It's just like your iPhones. If you want the newest and latest iPhone, You're going to pay for it, but you probably could get an iPhone 8 for half the price of a iPhone 11 right now, and it's just how that works. A car works the same way. Nice thing about a used car is it's cheaper to insure, and if it's more than 5 years old, the depreciation slows down very quickly after about 5 years. So you only lose a little bit every year. The biggest depreciation loss is in those first 2-3 years. Literally, as soon as you drive it off your parking lot of the place you purchased a new car, it depreciates in value. 10 seconds after you drive it off the lot because it's no longer new. Okay. So there are some disadvantages for new car. As I was just saying, the depreciation is almost immediate, and it will continue to be for the first few years. The insurance premiums are much higher, but sometimes those are offset with better safety features in them. So your insurance will go lower because of the safety features in a new car as opposed to an old car. Some disadvantages of a used car, it probably doesn't have a warranty. Places like CarMax and Carvana now, they do offer limited warranties, typically like 3 months. And that's nice because you know that if you're going to find something wrong with it, you're probably going to find, a major thing wrong within the first couple of weeks of driving it, and then you can bring it back and they'll either fix it or take it back from you. If you're buying a used car off the street from somebody else, you really want to make sure that you have it checked by a mechanic, because anyone can clean up a car and make it look nice, right? A couple hours on a weekend, you can clean up a car, wash it down, clean the insides out, vacuum it all out, make it look really nice. But the most important part is the engine and the mechanical parts of that. And it's best idea to take it to a mechanic. A lot of times you'll have to pay them a little something, but if you're spending $5,000 or $6,000 on a used car and you bring it to a mechanic and you spend $50 to find out it needs $3,000-$4,000 worth of work, that was $50 well spent to save you from the headache. So definitely have a used car checked by a mechanic. Now, the nice thing about CarMax and those type places is they have a mechanic look at it and then they certify it, which is a nice thing. You'll pay a little bit more for the car than you would on the street, but some people like that peace of mind. So comparison shop, you guys got it really easy now. You just go on the internet like you all did, and you can compare prices and equipment and features, and you can even shop around online now. You can have these different dealerships bid against each other. So you go to one and say, you're offering me the car for $30,000, the other one's offering me $29,000, beat that price, and you can go back and forth. And a lot of people do this. You'll bounce around once you're set on a car and color and specs you want. You can have them compete for your business, and within reason. Everybody has the point where they're not going to give you a $30,000 car for $20,000, but you could save a couple $100 by comparison shopping. So let's get into the preventative maintenance. The car has a number of different systems in it to keep it running. And preventative maintenance just means that you have to take it in when there's nothing wrong and have some maintenance done. The biggest one is an oil change, okay? You have to change your car's oil. Ask your parents, when did you change the oil last? If they have to think about it long and hard, they probably need to change their oil. But most people that do this regularly, it's one of the single most important things you could do for your car is to change the oil regularly. And you just look in the owner's manual, will tell you. So there's the power system and the control system. So the power systems are the car's battery and the engine and the car's computer. The book calls them ECMs. That's the electronic control module in the computer. The whole car is controlled by a computer now. So the mechanic can actually hook up a device to your car and read the computer and know all what's going on with your car. Then there's the fuel and emission systems. Almost all cars now are fuel ejected. that means they're not carbureted. If you get a really old car, you'd have to probably go back to the 1980s. Uh, they pretty much stopped making carbureted cars in the early 90s. But basically what this is fuel injected means the computer puts the precise amount of gasoline into the engine that it needs to run. Whereas a carburetor was a mechanical device that when you stepped on the gas, you would open up a lever that would let the gas in. And quite often it let too much or too little, and it wasn't very controlled. The fuel injection system is controlled by a computer and very precise, therefore saving you more on gas. The muffler's underneath the car. This reduces the noise. Without the muffler, your car would sound like a tank going down the street. You could tell a car whose muffler has gone bad because it sounds super loud. Then that's usually in the middle part underneath the car. The catalytic converter is right at the end. They kind of look the same. They're round in shape. But the catalytic converter scrubs out all of the dangerous exhaust before it's emitted into the air. It has some elements in there that will take a lot of the nitrogen oxides out of the exhaust and holds them in the catalytic converter. So the lubricating system of the car is important. Remember, metal scraping up against metal is really bad. And so those need to be oiled and greased on a regular basis. And if you don't, it causes friction, which causes heat, which causes things to break down. So as I stated early on, the most important one is to change your oil in your car. The oil goes into the engine and lubricates all of the moving parts in there. If you see your oil pressure light come on, you need to pull over and get that fixed immediately. You cannot run your car with the oil pressure light on. Then there's different types of coolant. The biggest one is your coolant in your radiator that circles through the engine and keeps the engine cool while it's running. Typically, antifreeze coolant is greenish in color. Then there's power steering fluid. This is so that you could turn the steering wheel easily. That's purplish. Then the transmission fluid, which is underneath the transmissions, which shifts the gears for you. It's usually a reddish, pinkish color. And then motor oil is black. Okay. Now remember, engine coolant has antifreeze in it, so it's very toxic to humans and animals. So if you're filling up your car in the driveway with some coolant and you spill it, you want to make sure you clean that all up. Okay. So you got to maintain these systems. So the steering system, if you see excess play in the steering wheel, like you go turn the steering wheel and the car doesn't turn, it's probably something with the power steering and you need to get that looked at. The braking system on most cars these days, most new cars have disc brakes on the front and the back. If it's a more economical car, it will have what's called drum brakes on the back, which are older and don't work quite as well as disc brakes. But most cars you'll see have four-wheel disc brakes. Those need to be replaced. It depends on how hard you drive. If you're driving in the city, let us stop and go 3 to 5 years. If it's more rural driving, less braking, you could probably get it for 5 to 6 years. Just depends on how hard you ride those brakes. The parking brake is a separate mechanical or electrical system, and it works on the rear brake. So you would put the parking brake on, as you know, in hills. Whenever you park on a hill, you want to put the parking brake on so that the car does not roll forward or backwards. It is a completely different system. There's a cable underneath the car. You want to use it quite regularly so that it doesn't suffer from corrosion and get locked. Tires are very important for the fuel efficiency of the car, for a smooth ride, for traction. And they're quite expensive. On a typical 4-door sedan, you're looking at $100 to $130 a tire. When you get into SUVs, they could be as much as $200-$300 a tire, and you get into sports car type tires, you're looking, $300-$400. Sky's the limit. But the one thing you need to be able to read on your tire is the sidewall, and the sidewall will tell you what type of tire and size you need. It will also tell you about the tread wear. The higher the tread wear number, the longer the tire is going to last. Okay, that's what you need to know. So the higher the grade, the longer it's going to last. Traction, the better traction you get is rated. So the highest grade is a AA, and it goes all the way down to C. And then there's temperature ratings too. Typically up here in the Midwest, we get all season tires on the car. So we want tires that will work just as well in the snow, rain, and sun as do tires down in the South. So down in the South, Texas, Florida, they typically don't sell cars with all-season tires because they're more expensive. Down there, they use summer tires. They are good in water, and they're good on dry pavement, not so good in the snow. You'll slide all over the place in them. So the suspension system is what keeps it a smooth ride, and that involves shock absorbers, struts, and springs to keep the car nice and smooth so it doesn't feel like you're in a rocking boat when you're driving, okay? So if you feel your car bouncing around or you feel like you're in the waves in the ocean on a boat, it's time to get your suspension checked, and that could be very costly to fix. The electricity system includes the car battery. Okay, the car battery provides everything with electricity that goes for the radio, the computer, the headlights, the lights inside the car. Okay, it's important to check your battery on a yearly basis. Just make sure there's no corrosion. And you can bring your battery to any auto parts store or mechanic, and they'll hook a battery tester to it, and they'll tell you exactly how much life you have left in a battery. Typically in Chicago, because of the cold, batteries last for about 5 years. Okay, that's about max on them. A battery will run you, depending on the size of your car, the bigger the car, the bigger the battery, $80 to $200. It just depends on which one you need. Now, let's say that you were going to a concert, and right before you went into the concert, you jumped in the car. You were checking out your hair, or you were looking for something in the car, and you left the light on in the car. You come back out after the concert, and the car battery is now dead, okay? Because what charges the battery in the car is when you drive the car. There's something called an alternator in the car, and the alternator, whenever the car engine is running, it's charging the battery. That's why you never have to plug your car in. Notice you got to plug your iPhone in every night when you drain the battery, but you never plug your car in. That's because when you're driving around, the alternator charges the battery. Now, if you just leave like the radio on all night, the battery will eventually drain and die. You could jumpstart a car battery with another car battery. So you pull that car up against yours, okay, and we're going to call it the good car and the dead car. So the good car, the battery is running fine. The dead car, the battery is not running. You take out your jumper cables. You will notice that they are black and red. And you start in a circle. You move around in a circle. So you always start at the dead battery. And this is how I always remember how to do this. You tell yourself you're going to be positive about the dead battery. Okay? So you hold the red positive cable and you clamp it to the terminal of the dead battery. You take the other end of that red terminal and clamp it to the red positive of the good battery. Then you grab the black or the negative cable, connect it to the terminal of the good battery. And then you come back to the dead battery, and you would think you would just connect it to the terminal of the dead battery, but that's not what you do. You connect it to a ground, a metal piece inside the engine. Typically, the thing I always look for is a little round ring on the engine where they hoisted the engine inside the car. That's a great thing to grab hold of. And you just clip it to that. You start up the good car, let that car run for a good couple minutes. And then while the cables are still on, you start the dead car. It probably will start right up. Then you disconnect them in opposite. So you start with the negative of on the dead battery side, take that off the ground, and then work your way back around. And then I would suggest driving your car around for a while and letting the alternator charge that battery back up. Okay? That's pretty much it. It's pretty simple, easy to do, and you'll probably have to do it one day. I just had to do it with my daughter not too long ago. Our battery died in the Menards parking lot. The last part here is about fuel efficiency. Today's cars offer a great fuel efficiency. They do this through fuel injection and the computers in the car and how they streamline the cars. They now have hybrid cars. Okay, you might have one where it's electrical and gas, and obviously, we have Teslas now that are all electrical. And I have a feeling that's where eventually most cars are going to be in the next 10 years, all electrical as they come out. Okay. Control your speed. Cars are set up for their maximum fuel efficiency between 40 and 60 miles an hour. If you get above 60 miles an hour, you're going to actually get 2 to 4 fewer miles per gallon. So you want them right in that optimal 40 to 60 miles an hour. That's where you'll get the best fuel efficiency. A warmed up car, warmed engine operates best. So if you have a fuel injected car, which most of them are, you only need to warm the car up for about 30 seconds. You don't need to, a lot of people have the automatic start on their keychain. They start the car up and they let it run out there for 10 minutes. That's actually bad for the engine. Fuel injected cars only need to warm up for about 30 seconds or so. I think that's it. I think we got to the end. All right. So there it is. We kind of went through that quick. Review any parts that you need to review. And I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching.